Ready for another deep dive? Today we're going right to the core of what makes something truly, and I mean truly random. We're talking about the kind of randomness that makes you go, huh, how is that even possible?
I love that we're tackling this. It's one of those deceptively simple questions that leads to some really profound ideas.
Totally. And we've got this text, kolmbook-eng-scan.pdf to guide us. It's a bit of a hidden gem, I'd say, in the world of mathematics.
It's a deep dive into algorithmic information theory. Really fascinating stuff.
Deep dive into a deep dive, huh? All right, I'm game if you are. But before we even get into all that, maybe we should start with the basics. Like, what do we even mean when we say random? Seems kind of obvious, but is it really?
Yeah, you'd think it'd be a simple question to answer, right? Turns out defining randomness in a really rigorous way, in a way that mathematicians like, that's surprisingly tricky.
Oh, I bet. So how does this Kolmbook thing approach it? Where does it even start?
Well, they jump right into something called computably enumerable sets pretty early on. Might sound a bit intimidating, but it's actually a pretty cool idea.
Computably enumerable. Okay, I'm already lost. Can we break that down a bit for those of us who aren't, living in the world of theoretical math?
Absolutely. So basically, imagine you have a set of things, could be numbers, could be words, whatever, and you want to list them all out. A computably enumerable set is one where you could, at least in theory, write a program to spit out every single element one by one. It might take forever, especially if it's an infinite set. But the point is, there's a clear process, a set of rules for generating every single item.
Okay, so even if the list goes on forever, there's still a system to it. I'm starting to see where you're going with this.
Exactly. Because when we talk about something being random, we're often talking about how hard it is to find that underlying system, those rules. If something's truly random, there shouldn't be a simple program or short set of instructions that can perfectly describe it or generate it.
So like a string of all ones that's easy to describe, right? Just write one a bunch of times. But a string of truly random digits, that's a different story.
Precisely. To generate a truly random string, you'd basically need a program that's just as long as the string itself, because each digit is unpredictable. You'd essentially be listing out the whole thing manually.
So the length of the program becomes a measure of how random something is. That's wild.
It is, and that's the essence of what's called Kolmogorov complexity. It's a way to put a number on how random something is by looking at the shortest possible computer program that can produce it.
Okay, so a shorter program, low Kolmogorov complexity, means there's some structure there, some pattern. A longer program, high Kolmogorov complexity, means it's closer to true randomness, like a randomness ruler, kind of.
That's a great way to put it. It's a way to measure how much algorithmic surprise is packed into a piece of information.
I like that, algorithmic surprise. Now, I noticed, flipping through this Kolmbook, that it gets into different types of Kolmogorov complexity. Plain, conditional, prefix. It's a bit like choosing your own randomness adventure.
Uh-huh. I like that. And you're right, it does get a bit more nuanced. It's not just about the length of the program, but also what we're allowed to tell the program beforehand or how we want those programs to interact.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So what are the main differences between these flavors of randomness?
Well, plain complexity, that's the basic one we've been talking about. Shortest program, no strings attached. But then we get to conditional complexity, and things get a bit more interesting.
Conditional complexity. All right, lay it on me. I'm ready for the next level of randomness. What makes it different?
So imagine this. You're trying to describe, say, today's weather. Pretty straightforward, right? But now let's say I tell you yesterday was a scorching hot summer day. Does that change how you describe today's weather?
I see what you mean. Like, if it's still hot today, I might just say, yep, same as yesterday, scorching. But if a cold front rolled in overnight, well, that's a different story. I'd need to give you more details.
Exactly. Conditional complexity captures that. It asks, how much harder is it to describe something if we already know something else? If I already know yesterday's weather, describing today's might be easier. That means the conditional complexity is lower.
It's all about the context. So something can have high plain complexity, like it's hard to describe on its own, but low conditional complexity if we have the right background info.
You got it. It highlights that randomness isn't always inherent to the information itself, but can also depend on what we already know.
That's fascinating. Okay, so we've got plain and conditional. What about this prefix complexity? That one always throws me off a bit.
Yeah, it's a bit more technical. Think of it like this. Imagine you're sending a bunch of text messages, right? You want to make sure that each message arrives as a complete thought, that your phone doesn't get things mixed up and jumble the words together.
Right, that would be a mess. Hey, how are you doing today? Hope you're doing... Oh, forget it.
Exactly. Prefix complexity is all about making sure our descriptions are self-delimiting. That means each one has a clear start and end, so they can be strung together without getting muddled up. It ensures our programs, our descriptions, don't accidentally blend into each other.
Okay, so it's like each program, each description comes with its own punctuation mark, so to speak. Makes sense. But it does make me wonder, with all these different ways to measure complexity, is there a best one? Like, which flavor of Kolmogorov should I order?
That's the interesting thing. There isn't a one-size-fits-all. It really depends on what you're trying to understand about the information. Each variation gives us a different lens through which to view and measure randomness.
So it's like a randomness toolbox, each tool with its own purpose. Makes sense. But I gotta say, it's kind of mind-blowing thinking about how we even begin to measure something as, well, random as randomness. Is there even such a thing as truly random? Or is it all just complexity we haven't untangled yet?
Now, those are the million-dollar questions, and this is where our deep dive gets really interesting, because this source, it dives into something called a Martin-Löf random sequence. This is like the gold standard of randomness.
Martin-Löf random sequence sounds intense, like a secret code or something. What makes it so special?
Well, imagine a sequence of numbers. Could be anything. A Martin-Löf random sequence, it passes every single statistical test you can throw at it for randomness. And I mean every reasonable test.
Okay, now I'm curious. What makes a randomness test unreasonable?
Imagine demanding a coin flip to always alternate a heads and tails to be considered random. That's unreasonable, right?
Yeah.
Even perfectly random flips will have streaks of heads or tails.
Right, it'd be like saying a song is only good if it uses every note equally. Sounds chaotic more than musical.
Exactly. A reasonable test looks for genuine signs of randomness, not some preconceived pattern. And a Martin-Löf random sequence, it laughs in the face of these tests. No patterns, no predictability, pure, unadulterated randomness.
Okay, that's pretty impressive. But how does this ultra-random sequence tie back to, Kolmogorov and all that?
Oh, they're totally connected. You see, if a string's Kolmogorov complexity is basically equal to its length, that means it's practically incompressible. There's no shorter way to describe it than just writing it out. And guess what? That's a strong sign. It's also a Martin-Löf random sequence. It's like the ultimate compressed file. It can't get any smaller because it's pure, unpredictable information.
So true randomness is basically incompressibility in disguise. It all comes together. That's amazing. But I gotta ask, this is all super cool theoretically, but does it have any real-world impact? Like, do people actually use this stuff outside of, math lectures?
Oh, absolutely. This is where these ideas, they really come alive. Take cryptography, for instance. The security of your online banking, your messaging apps, it all relies on generating truly random numbers for encryption keys.
So if the randomness isn't truly random, someone could, predict the keys and break the encryption.
Exactly. If there's even a slight pattern, a tiny bit of predictability, it creates a weakness that can be exploited. That's why understanding and generating truly random numbers is crucial for cybersecurity.
Wow, okay. That's a bit sobering. So our digital lives depend on these seemingly abstract ideas about randomness. Who knew?
It's true. And it goes even deeper. Remember that section on generic algorithms? The book only touches on it briefly, but it's a fascinating area where randomness plays a key role.
Generic algorithms, right. Remind me again, what's so special about them?
They're like master problem solvers, designed to tackle a wide range of challenges. And here's the thing. Sometimes introducing a bit of randomness into these algorithms actually helps them find solutions more efficiently.
Wait, really? How does that work? Isn't randomness like the opposite of efficiency?
It seems counterintuitive, but think about it like searching through a maze. If you always take the most logical path, you might get stuck in a dead end. But if you allow yourself to wander a bit randomly, you might stumble upon the exit faster.
Huh. So sometimes a little bit of chaos can help cut through the clutter. It's like those aha moments when you stop trying so hard and the solution just pops into your head.
Exactly. And the book mentions something called busy beaver functions, which kind of embodies that idea beautifully. They're these incredibly simple programs that, when you run them, produce surprisingly complex outputs, like finding a tiny seed that grows into this giant, intricate tree.
So even with just a few lines of code, a sprinkle of randomness can lead to this explosion of complexity. That's wild.
It speaks to the power of emergence, where complexity arises not from intricate design, but from simple rules and a touch of the unexpected.
This is blowing my mind. Okay, so we've gone from defining randomness to measuring it, and now we're seeing how it pops up in everything from keeping our online data safe to designing smarter algorithms. It's amazing how something that seems so, well, random can have such profound implications.
It really is. And it makes you wonder, if we can quantify randomness in a string of numbers, could we apply these same ideas to other areas? Like, what about music or art? Can we measure the surprise factor in a melody or the unpredictability of an abstract painting?
It's like you're saying we can actually measure the artistic chaos, so to speak. That's pretty wild.
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it?
Hmm.
Like, could we analyze a composer's entire body of work and determine their Kolmogorov complexity as a musician? Are the most random composers the ones we consider the most creative?
Whoa, that's deep. Could we use these principles to, like, understand what makes a piece of art truly unique and captivating? Is it just a matter of finding the right balance between predictability and surprise?
Exactly. And if we can program algorithms to create art and music, could we build in a sense of randomness, of creative unpredictability that rivals human expression?
Now that would be something to hear. Imagine a symphony composed by an AI that's mastered the art of the Martin Luff random sequence. Talk about a mind-bending concert.
It really makes you question, doesn't it? What is creativity? Is it something uniquely human, or can it be broken down into algorithms and information theory? I don't know, but it's certainly making me think.
This entire deep dive has been one giant thought experiment. We started by just trying to define randomness, and somehow we ended up questioning the very nature of creativity itself.
That's the beauty of diving into these complex topics. You never know where they might lead.
Absolutely. So to all our listeners out there, next time you listen to a song or see a piece of art that moves you, think about the role of randomness. Is it just chaos? Or is it a carefully orchestrated dance between order and unpredictability?
And remember, this is just the beginning. There's a whole universe of fascinating ideas waiting to be explored in the world of algorithmic information theory.
So keep those minds curious, and until next time, happy exploring.